Man and Machine is brought to you by Highflex Mobile Hose Service, Shannons Insurance for Motoring Enthusiasts, and the following sponsors.
Yeah, baby!
Don't move from your seat because this episode of Man and Machine we check out one of the biggest car collections we've ever seen.
Well, it's time for an Aussie assault on the Mustang 50th anniversary. We've got these two fastbacks owned by Australians loaded up ready to go here, and we're about to embark on a road trip from Oldsmar, Florida all the way to Charlotte Motorsport Speedway, North Carolina. So sit tight and enjoy the ride. Well, on the way up to the 50th Mustang anniversary in North Carolina with Matt and Sherry Clark, they said you've got to stop into National Parts Depot to have a look at an incredible car collection. I'm not too sure what they're talking about, but let's go inside and see what this collection's all about. Well, here we are with Rick Schmidt, the owner of this magnificent collection. Rick, it's fantastic to be here and thanks for having us along.
Oh, you're very welcome. Glad you could come.
And you've got an enormous collection here, and our biggest challenge today is we can't go through every car, so we've chosen a handful.
Okay.
Can we start with this one right here?
Yeah, that's a 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado. It only has a little bit over 1,200 original miles on it. I believe it's probably the lowest mile original Toronado in existence. 66 was the very first year for the Toronado. That was Motor Trend's Car of the Year, the first mass-produced front-wheel drive vehicle for General Motors.
So it would be unique with front drive and a big engine. Tell us about
Yes.
the power plant in these cars.
That was a 425 Oldsmobile V8, and the engineering of it is fantastic. It's one of the favorite cars in the collection. It even has its original tires still, which were unique to the Toronado. They were Uniroyal T-FD, which stood for Toronado Front Drive. The owner of the car contacted me and said, I hear you like low-mile stuff, you might be interested in my Toronado, so I went to visit him. He lived in a very modest neighborhood in northern Tampa. The car sat in a one-car garage, and he had sawed a hole in his living room wall so that the air conditioning inside the house would waft out into the garage to help to keep the car.
Tell us about this 56 Chevy convertible here.
This is another example where colors and options really won the day with us. Another convertible, another restored car.
And what power plant does this one run?
This has the 265 power pack with an automatic transmission.
So the iconic small block Chevy
Yes.
at its very early stage.
Yes.
They really are an iconic series of vehicles through that
Yes.
55, through the 57, the Chevys, aren't they?
So iconic, and that drives the values up. Everybody has a 55 through 7 Chevrolet story. It seems like everybody's parents or grandparents or great-grandparents had a 55 through 57 Chevy at some time. And it's that nostalgia that really drives up the values on these cars. Because if you actually drove the car and then you drove a comparable year Cadillac, there's a huge difference in quality between the two machines, the Cadillac being a far more better driving car. Yet, in most cases, a decent shape Bel Air convertible will outpace a same year Cadillac.
Rick, now here's a car that gets my heart racing, the Pontiac GTO. Tell us about this machine.
Well, this is a 1966 GTO, and it's a beautiful piece. I've had the 67 next to it for many, many years. In fact, I was driven home from the hospital when I was born in a 1967 GTO, but I picked this one up about 3 years ago. It's a fully restored car. Most of the cars in my collection are unrestored survivors, but this one's a drop-dead gorgeous full nut and bolt restoration with all the right equipment. It's a 389 with the tri-power option. The 66 and 7 GTOs are my favorite of the whole span of GTOs from 1964 through 72.
And with the Pontiac GTO, the earlier versions were actually probably the car that really did start that muscle car scene, didn't they, really? The
Yes.
muscle car wars.
Well, you know, sometimes people get a little carried away with all the semantics of what is a muscle car, because there were plenty of fast cars coming out of Detroit prior to 1964. The 1964 was really the first time that a manufacturer took one of their top performance engines from the full-sized car line and stuffed it into one of their mid-sized offerings. Plenty of other competitors came after that, but that was really what marked, you know, the muscle car was the big engine in a slightly lighter body.
Got the ball rolling.
Yes, yes.
Obviously, you're a very passionate car enthusiast. Tell us about this absolutely magnificent car collection you've got here.
Well, ever since I was a kid, you know, up until the evolution of NPD, my father was always playing around and dabbling with cars. He'd buy a used car for cheap. He would fix it up a little bit. Usually he always bought quality stuff, so the fixing up was really just getting it tuned up and driving right and cleaning her up in some way, and then usually it would get spun off for a profit, and that kind of helped sponsor mine and my sister's college funds. Most of the cars we scouted and we purchased together, because we usually went out to auctions and to swap meets together as a team. And none of us ever expected to get this out of hand.
HiFlex Mobile Hose Service, your complete hose breakdown and on-site service partner. HiFlex Mobile Hose Service offers a complete range of quality guaranteed hydraulic and industrial hose and fittings products. We also specialise in preventative maintenance programs such as on-site hose condition auditing, testing and compliance. With our national fleet of qualified technicians, you can rely on HiFlex Mobile Hose Service's rapid response to all of your needs. Call 1300 HiFlex, 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Shannons Club, a hub for motoring enthusiasts. So join, create your own garage, share pics, videos and stories of your current and past machines, connect with other enthusiasts. Be sure to watch Shannons Club TV with a host of dedicated motoring channels, including past episodes of Man and Machine. So jump on board with Shannons Club. I'll see you on there.
I love the shape of these early Thunderbirds, but I believe this isn't your everyday Thunderbird. It's got a bit of an interesting power plant.
It's not your everyday Thunderbird. They call these F-birds because that's the code for the engine. It's the F code 312 supercharged. They only built a little over 200 of these supercharged Thunderbirds simply to homologate them for NASCAR racing. Back in the early days of stock car racing, they really meant stock car racing, and at least 100 of any given engine had to be sold to the public, installed in a factory car.
Wow, so they could utilise this engine in another body.
In a stock car body,
Yep.
Right. So very few built, very, very valuable today compared to a regular, you know, single 4-barrel carbureted Thunderbird. My father, he drove a black 57 Thunderbird when he was in high school. That was his daily driver, but it was what they call the E code. It was a dual 4-barrel, and he had a 3-speed overdrive, but he always dreamed of owning a supercharged car. He bought this in 1983 as a 40th birthday present for himself, and it was a nice driver quality, rust-free car that was sold new from California. Dad drove it for a couple of months, and it quickly developed what he thought was a head gasket leak, and he parked it. And we've been shoving this sucker around here all those years after that because it didn't run and it needed to be restored. We did a proper restoration of it, got all the blower assembled back up, got it running right, so now it's a fully functional supercharged 57 Thunderbird.
What a car. Well, I love a 63 Impala, but this isn't just your everyday ordinary 63 Impala. This is a very special car, isn't it?
Very special 63 Impala. This is the actual 50 millionth unit built by Chevrolet. The 50 millionth car to roll off one of their assembly lines. It was built at the Tarrytown, New York plant. Nelson Rockefeller was the governor of New York at the time. I have photographs of the car from newspaper clippings of him driving the car off the assembly line with a big 50 millionth sign on top of it.
Wow.
Big fanfare. The car wound up, it was loaned to dealerships for promotional use in the 60s. and it wound up at a dealership just south of Detroit, and due to a paperwork flub, that dealership wound up sending in a check to pay for the car and was issued the certificate of origin. And when GM came to pick the car up, they said, no, we've owned that car now. So it lived at that dealership for all the way up until the mid-'80s, until it was finally discovered again.
Wow.
When we acquired it, it had only 92 miles on it, but it was a little bit beat up just from sitting all those years. We just carefully disassembled the whole entire thing, refinished all the original components to look like brand new, and reassembled it all back together and got her running and operating like a proper car so it could be proud again. And I think it's got about 155 miles on it today, still sitting on its original tires, and it's just an amazing car.
And I noticed it sports a 409 engine.
Yes, it's the entry-level 409, the 340 horsepower version with just a 2-speed Power Glide automatic transmission. They wanted it to be civilized and easy to drive because they were going to have a dignitary driving it off the assembly line, so having the 425 horse version with the 4-speed, something could have happened, right? He could have driven right through the opposite wall of the factory. So.
Here's a classic 50s shape, this beautiful Crown Victoria. Tell us about this one, Rick.
That's a 1955 Crown Victoria. Beautiful car to look at. That's what we thought when we bought it. Bought the car, did the paperwork, grabbed the keys. I went to pull it out of the holding lot, and the whole entire power steering system puked out from underneath it, and we had to tow it out of there. And then once we started learning more about the car, we've taken the interior out, redone it, obviously fixed the steering issues, retuned, checked everything, rebuilt as necessary. I think we've had the car now for 9 years, and Larry finally got her button back up about a few months ago, so it's finally running, driving, fun, nice. I'm happy with the final outcome. She's a beautiful car.
So Rick, tell me how many cars you've got in your collection now up to date.
We just crested 200 vehicles in the last couple of months. In fact, I just bought 2 more recently, so I think I'm at 202. I keep telling myself that that's going to be it, because we also pride ourselves in keeping all the cars in good operable condition. Even when the cars only have 5 miles on the odometer, we still start it periodically and keep things, you know, as if you could drive out the door and drive it, and sometimes we do, depending on the mileage. I exercise all of the collection, but at 200, trying to keep up with all of this and also run the business is becoming more than one person can sleep at night with.
Hi, I'm Dennis. This is my 32 and I run Aeroflow.
Hi, I'm Paul. This is my Attack 56 and I use Aeroflow.
Hi, I'm Scott. This is Blown Inheritance. Makes 1,700 horsepower and we depend on Aeroflow.
Hi, I'm Graham Cowan. For race-winning performance, I choose Aeroflow. Aeroflow, way to go.
Aeroflow, manufacturers of professional hose, fittings and a whole range of performance products to suit your vehicle. To download the latest Aeroflow catalogue, go to aeroflowperformance.com. Proud supporters of the Aeroflow Outlaw Nitro Funny Cars.
Damn, there's just no room under here.
There's no need to do this anymore when you can buy a Tough Lift hoist starting from only $24.50. With over 20 models in their range, including 2-post, 4-post, scissor lift, motorcycle and truck. They're great for storage too. All Tough Lift hoists have Australian standard certification and WorkSafe design registration. With an impressive warranty, in-house technical support and installation options Australia-wide, what are you waiting for? Check out toughlift.com.au.
I love my Tough Lift.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Kruger from On Track Accounts. Not only am I a racing fan, but I love my motorsport at every level. If you're a car enthusiast like me, come in and have a chat about your business accounts, BAS lodgements, or getting your personal tax ready. We're a small but dedicated team of enthusiasts, and we like nothing more than getting your accounts back on track. Find us at ontrackaccounts.com.au.
And Rick, this spectacular Pontiac convertible, and the red absolutely pops. Tell us about this car.
Yeah, this is a real showstopper, and it's another restored car. It's the exception and not the norm in our collection, but it's a top line, the colors, fully optioned, power windows. It was one of those cars that just ticked all of the boxes. This is one of the few cars that my dad bought without me there. He was off at a show somewhere and went to the auction and picked this up. And it's just real eye candy. And we don't have a whole lot of convertibles in our collection because we're big fans of styling, huge fans of styling of the 50s and 60s. And usually with the convertible, you don't have that roof line, that styled roof line that's part of the car's overall shape. So we've always trended towards coupe, but this car in convertible form is just an absolute winner.
So effectively, the roof really needs to be down to take full advantage of the,
Yes.
of the convertible look and feel. But
Yeah.
it was a real iconic era, that 50s era. The shape was very similar between the GM and
Yes.
Pontiac brands, wasn't it?
They were beginning to look like a family, but they really weren't yet. Very close though.
quite,
Towards
yeah.
the late 50s, that's when things started to homogenize.
It was an iconic era, and an era that I'm starting to gain more and more interest in as I get older, I'm
Yes.
finding. So here's a car that was reserved for the very wealthy in the day, in the 50s, this Lincoln Continental.
Yes, the Continental Mark II was a very expensive car for its day. They retailed for just a tad over $10,000.
Wow.
You could buy 2 top-line Cadillacs for the cost of 1 Mark II, or 3 Corvettes, just to give you a little bit of context for how expensive these cars were. They were hand-built. This was Ford's exercise in trying to do something on a Rolls-Royce level of quality and exclusivity. William Clay Ford Sr. was the leader of the Continental division, and this is his personal car. He also in 1968 had this car upgraded by Ford Engineering with 1968.5 Mark III driveline. So it has a 460 V8 with a C6 transmission, power disc brakes, all the work done within the walls of Ford, so it's still acceptable to show at AACA levels as a factory car because the factory made all of the modifications.
Wow.
And so it's a very special Mark II, and we actually have a collection of 3 Mark IIs here.
I noticed there's 2 others parked here.
They all have connections to the Ford family. This was William Clay Sr.'s car. The black one was ordered new by his brother, Henry Ford II, for his wife Anne. And then there's a green one past that belonged to Benson Ford. So all 3 brothers, all 3 of Henry Ford's grandsons
Owned these cars.
Owned these cars. So
Wow,
this is probably
amazing.
the crown jewel of our entire collection is this set of 3 Continentals.
Wow. I've always loved these very early Impalas, a groundbreaking car
Yes.
for the day from that 50s series of cars.
Yeah, the Chevrolet styling was just spot on in 1960. 348 tri-power engine, 4-speed transmission. We've done a restoration of the car, but the majority of the interior is still all original, and it was a nice original rust-free car to begin with, but just a little too over the hill to just leave as is, so we decided to do a careful restoration of the cosmetics of it.
To have that engine option with a manual transmission in a convertible, I would imagine would have been quite rare.
Yes, it's a rare car, and to have in the black with the black and white interior, which I just think is a dynamite color combination for this, it was a good score.
Well, it caught my eye.
Yeah.
Spectacular. So here's an interesting car in Ford's history, Rick.
Yes, this is the 50 millionth Ford produce. It preceded the Impala by 4 years. The car embarked on a tour and was driven in a circle around the United States in 1959, promoting the 1959 Ford product line and obviously their 50 millionth car. And then it resided at the Henry Ford Museum. In the early 80s, for whatever reason, crazy as it was, the Henry Ford decommissioned the car and sold it into private hands. And when that owner became elderly and passed away, it showed up at auction. We also own the 100 millionth and the 150 millionth Fords produced. So with those 2 cars already in pocket, we decided that we really needed to go after the 50 millionth, so we went to the auction and got top bid on this. It's in beautiful condition because it's only got 12,000 original miles on it, so it's still on its original tires, paint, interior. This car is wholly unrestored, so it's a neat piece.
So over 4,000 miles of that mileage would have been the trip around the US in the day.
Oh, in excess of that, yeah.
Amazing. And the power plant in these cars?
This one had the 292 V8 in it, which was really the smallest V8 that you could get in a full-size 59.4. It was kind of the last gasp of the Y block, except for truck applications.
So Rick, tell us where it all started with National Parts Depot.
Well, it all started with my father, who's been involved in the car hobby since he was a teenager. In fact, we still have his original car here in the collection, the Model A that he bought when he was 14 years old and restored while he was in high school. But the actual company name, National Parts Depot, began as a business selling 1955 through 1957 Thunderbird parts out of the basement of our family home in Gainesville, Florida. And soon after he started in the basement and saw that he was going to be able to pay the bills selling parts, he built a building out on the interstate and expanded into Mustang parts, and that's really where the trajectory of the company took off, was with the addition of the Mustang parts to our lineup.
So the company's grown into an enormous entity as it stands today, and covers all sorts of different types of makes and models now, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, it's all relative to the size of the hobby, but we are one of the larger restoration part suppliers that exists for collector's type cars.
Honey, what are you doing out there?
Waiting on the next super blowout 3-day only mega sale.
You don't need a sale, you need MPD.
NPD's everyday prices are competitive, and our huge in-stock inventory and dedicated export department allows orders to arrive fast to Australia. National Parts Depot has quality parts for Mustang, Camaro, Chevelle, GTO, Firebird, Ford, and Chevy truck. Go online or email export@npdlink.com.
Working beats waiting.
A tough car needs a tough oil, and that's when you need Gulf Western Oil. It's Australian-owned, developed and manufactured in their state-of-the-art production facility. So no matter what you drive, you can be assured you're in the right hands for all your lubrication needs. Gulf Western Oil, the tough Australian.
Rick, here's a bit of a groundbreaker, an iconic machine, this A model Ford.
Yes, 1928 Model A, first year for the Model A. It's not the most valuable car in our collection, but it's literally the centerpiece of our collection. This was my dad's actual first car. He bought this car out of a junkyard in Ohio when he was 14 years old. His dream was to restore a Model A when he was a kid, so my grandfather finally gave him permission to try his hand at one. And he restored the car the first time around while he was still in high school. Basically, that's what got him into both the hobby of the classic cars, but also the business of the classic cars. His experience in restoring this Model A led him to offer restoration hardware kits with all the proper fasteners for restoring a Model A that he started selling while he was still in high school. So my dad's been in the old car parts business since before he even graduated high school. And this car is what started it.
Amazing. I mean, the Model A was a very special model. I can still see a picture with Henry Ford and his son Edsel standing next to one on the release, and really they were a real game changer from the T model days, weren't they? This was the refined version, I suppose, if you like, of the T model, and really took Ford to that next level, didn't they?
Well, yeah, and similarly, they took what they learned from the T and improved upon it, but they had also, back in the 20s, purchased Lincoln, of which we have parked right next to it, and a lot of what you see in Lincoln also got scaled down on the Model A. So it's really a blending of T and Lincoln.
Bit of both.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Shared technology. Now here's a car that most people would have to recognise from the movie Smokey and the Bandit.
Well, everybody refers to this as a Smokey and the Bandit car, but none of the cars that were actually in the movie on film, none of them survived. Not one of them exists today. What makes this car very special, though, however, is it's the first Y84 off the line. And what Pontiac decided to do with the very first 1978 Y84 car was that they presented it to Burt Reynolds as a thank you gift for the success of the Smokey and the Bandit movies.
Wow, so Burt Reynolds, the actor in the movie, was presented with this car?
With this car. This was his personal car given to him by Pontiac as a big thank you, because you can imagine how many Trans Ams Pontiac was selling in the wake of that film. And he owned it all the way up into the mid-80s. 1984, he sold it to a friend of his who was actually in the movie also. He was one of the truck drivers in the convoy scenes. And he kept it for another 7-8 years, and then he put it up at auction, and my father happened to be at the auction and came away with the car. And as a matter of fact, just a couple of months ago, I was invited to the grand opening of a hot rod shop in Jupiter, where Burt still lives, called Bubba's East Coast Customs, and they had Burt come to the grand opening, and we reunited him with the car, and he got up and posed with it and gave me a big hug and a thank you for keeping the car so nice. He was really moved by the whole entire thing, and when he was posing with it, he fingered up my T-top all over the place. So I've left those fingerprints there for now. I know they won't last forever. I've got to dust the cars every now and then, but for right now, I'm going to keep them there for a while. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Savor that moment.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now here's a car I can't walk past, a genuine Boss 429 69 fastback, Rick. What a car.
Yes, this is one of my dream cars when I was a kid growing up, so this was a dream realized. I've had the car for quite a long time now, thankfully, because the cars have shot up so high in value. I don't know that I'd have the stomach to write the size of check that it takes to buy one today, but I wanted a good, high-quality car, but not one that was so over-restored that I couldn't drive it and enjoy it. So when I bought it, it had about 28,000 miles on it, a very, very pampered life. All the original interior is still in this car. The undercarriage is unrestored and like brand new, like the owner never drove it in the rain.
Perfect.
All original panels. It's just a wonderful car. The engine was performance built back in the 80s by a very noteworthy engine builder who did a lot of Dyno Don Nicholson's engines, as well as pit crewing for him as well. His name was Earl Wade. So it's got a Stroker 494 crank in it, and it's a running Boss 429. Sometimes these cars have an undeserved reputation for not being performers.
Yeah,
it's undeserved because you put a good-sized carburetor and open these things up, and nothing's going to touch it. It's
well, effectively from the factory, they were fairly choked up in the exhaust system, and they really were a homologated engine that was designed and built for NASCAR.
Just like the supercharged Thunderbird, this was a homologation for NASCAR. By that time, the threshold had lifted to 500. You have to sell at least 500 units. They sold over 800 of these in 1969, and then a 500 even in 1970. But yeah, the sole purpose wasn't to make guys go fast off the showroom floor. They just wanted to get the engine legal for NASCAR.
And then open it up.
You put big headers and big exhaust and a big carburetor and really, you know, open one of these things up, they are just absolute animals.
I've heard they'll make 550 horsepower
easily,
all day long.
Easily, more. And it's a huge horsepower potential in these engines. You just have to take them away from stock a little bit. So I've got all the stock components for this. I've got the original air cleaner and the smog equipment and everything, but the car's so much fun to drive. It might be the next owner after I'm, you know, 10 feet under who will put that stuff back.
You've got to have a car that blows your socks off, don't you?
Yeah,
that'll be the car.
I've got a lot of Concours-y cars around here, but this one's just is just right, just the way it is. Yep.
Well, Rick, what a fantastic collection. I'm very envious of you, and I appreciate your time. The only thing I do regret is not having a week to cover this whole collection, because it'd be amazing, but you know, we can only do one episode, and I really appreciate your time.
We can always make a return trip. The cars just sit back here a lot of the times and they get lonely, so we love it for people to be able to see what we've got here.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rick. All I can say is, wow, what an amazing experience this has been. When my good friends Matt and Sherry Clark, living in Florida, told me they knew of someone with an amazing car collection, I had no idea it was going to be anything like this. Forget a barn find, this is a factory find. 200 plus cars. The only thing I regret is not being able to cover every one of them. You'd need to spend a week here, it would be impossible. I had to walk past some spectacular cars, but I'm sure what I've shown you on this episode would have to impress. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did, and I'll see you next time on Man and Machine. Man and Machine is brought to you by Hi-Flex Mobile Hose Service, Shannons Insurance for Motoring Enthusiasts, and the following sponsors.